techniques. In the previous video, we have seen how to create a project in GitHub and how to pull the changes into that project from our local, and we have done that using the HTTPS URL. In this video, we are going to look into the SSH protocol, how to access the GitHub repository using the SSH URL. Okay, so before watching this, I'll recommend you guys go back and look for the videos that I've uploaded for the GitHub. And if you have already done that, thank you so much. So let's begin with that. Okay, so we'll create a project and name it as SSH project. So why are we using the SSH? When do we need to use the SSH? We have already seen that using HTTPS works just fine for us, and it enables us to interact with the GitHub repository through our local Git. So there will be scenarios in which you will be facing errors and difficulties while accessing your GitHub project. One such scenario could be when you will be using a GitHub enterprise account, uh, either directly or when you are using an enterprise account over a VPN. So in such scenarios, the HTTPS protocol will give you some error, or when you will be implementing Jenkins into your project over a VPN. So in those scenarios, you might get an error, that fatal error, that Git is not able to connect to the GitHub repository through the URL. So in those cases, we need this SSH URL in order to interact with our project. So how can we implement this SSH project? So just how we implemented HTTPS through this URL, we'll be using the SSH to implement the interaction of the project. So as you can see here, the SSH thing uses an SSH key and a passphrase from account. So what is an SSH key? So SSH interacts with the project through a key pair, which is nothing but a RSA public private key pair. And what is a passphrase? So for all such key pairs, when you will be generating a key, uh, Git will ask you to give a passphrase, which is nothing but extra layer of security. You can skip that also, but it is recommended that you give a keyword as a passphrase, so that every time you try to connect, Git will prompt you to provide for that keyword. Okay, let's go and create one RSA key pair. For that, I'll go here. Let's make a new project altogether. This time, let's don't make a project. This time what we'll do, we have learned how to push and pull. This time, along with the generation and interaction with the SSH method, we will try to clone a project. So what is cloning of a project? In case you are not working on your own project, or in case you want to work on a project which is there on the GitHub but is not in your local, what we'll do, we'll clone a project. So cloning is basically downloading your project, a GitHub project through cloud, into your local. Okay, so since we have just created this project, technically this project shouldn't be in our local, so we'll be cloning this project, and we'll using the SSH method to clone it to our local. So first, let's say this is the workspace where we want to keep our project. So we'll open the command window here, and we will generate the RSA key pair. So the command for that is SSH keygen st RSA, and then your email ID associated with the GitHub repository. Okay, so Git prompts us by saying that it is going to generate a private key pair, and it's asking where do you want to save the file. You can give whatever location you want, but for now I'm sticking to the default location, which is this, and I'm simply gonna press enter. So I've selected the default location. Now for you guys, if you are doing it for the first time, you won't be prompted with this overwrite option, but since I've already, for me there is a RSA key pair that already exists in that location, Git is prompting us that do I want to overwrite that or not. I'll say yes. Now as we discussed, it's asking me for a passphrase. I'll keep the passphrase as Aditya, and I'll provide the same again to confirm. Now Git has successfully generated this RSA key pair for me. One more thing, if you guys are doing this for the first time, you might be getting error while doing the first command, which is SSH keygen TRSA and the following things. But why are you getting this error? So basically command line has no idea about this SSH or keygen thing. So in order to make the command line recognize this command, we have to set few of the environment variables. So how do we do that? First we'll go to program files and we'll go for git. Now if you guys haven't installed git in your local, this folder won't be present. So you can see my video on how to install git, and once you are done with, come here, and then you have to copy the path files for three of the folders. I'll tell you. First one is bin, which will provide the access to the sh.exe and bash and git. So this path, and then the user and bin. So most important path, but other two should also be there. Once you copy these three paths, you have to go to your environment variables, and then the system variables, system path variables, edit it and paste those paths over here separated by a semicolon in the end. Once you are done with that, click OK, click on apply, and you're good to go. So now if you try again, you will be facing no errors while following this same paths again and again. So for now, yeah, we have generated our RSA key token pair, which is a public and a private key. So we are going to check out whether the files have been generated in the specified path or not. So the path for me is this. So I'll go here. And yeah, three files here. This we don't need to bother about for now. What are the id underscore RSA? What is id underscore RSA dot pub? So the first one is a private key and the second one is a RSA public key. In order to provide access to the GitHub project, we'll be needing this key first. So we are going to just open this in a text editor and we will be copying the contents of it. Just copy it. Okay. Once we are done with the copying, we'll go to our project. Now there comes two things. The key that we have just generated can be used in two different ways. So the first way to use it is when you want that key to be used to provide access for one particular project of yours, like for this particular project, SSH project for us, we'll go to the settings of that project, we'll go to the deploy keys, and we will add that particular key over here. But if we want to use that key to provide access for all the projects which is under my account, we are going to the settings of the account through here, and we will go to the SSH and JPG key. Once we are here, I'm going to delete this key and I'm going to add a new SSH key. So the title could be anything, but preferably we should give a name which enables us to understand what is this key and why do we need this key. So I'm going to tell it that this is a SSH key, SSH account key. That means I'm using this to provide access to all the projects in my account, and I'll paste the contents of the public file, public RSA file, which I have just copied. Okay, yeah, cool. So this file has been added, and now we can use this key to provide access to all the projects in my account. Okay, now let's go back. Yeah. So we'll open the command line. Okay, and now we'll try to pull this repository that we have just created. So we'll go to the repository, we will copy the SSH key, and we are cloning it, right? So to clone, we have the command git clone and then the URL, the SSH URL. So we'll press enter, and yeah, it's telling us that it's cloning into the SSH project. It might take a bit depending on your internet speed. So as you can see, while cloning, it's asking me for a passphrase. So I'll give my passphrase, and yeah, so the cloning is done, and now we are going to see whether that file has been copied over here or not. Yeah, so we have opened the command line here, and we can see that our files has been successfully copied, cloned to our local. Okay, so we have seen how we can clone a project using the SSH and key pair technology, and how we can do all the things which we were doing until now with the HTTPS successfully with the SSH also. So the main agenda of this video is to let you know how we can generate a RSA key token pair, and how we can use it whenever we face a failure while using with the HTTPS protocols. Okay, so if you have any questions of any doubts, any difficulties you are facing while implementing this, do let us know in the comments or in the WhatsApp group or in the email, and I'll be providing a solution for that. In case you have liked the video, like the content of it, please go and like it. Please click on the subscribe icon and click on the notification bell next to it. Thank you.